Hi, I'm Beth Trapani, and this is the second in a series of webisodes about teaching kids about healthy eating. It's sponsored by MissionHealthyLiving.org, which is funded by the Pottstown Health and Wellness Foundation. And our guest for this webisode is Yvonne Post, and you are the owner of Cooking for Real, which is a company that helps teach kids about healthy eating. So, Yvonne, tell us about your company and what you actually do, especially in schools.
Well, my company, Cooking for Real, it's a hands-on cooking and nutrition education company. We go into schools or corporate centers or all around the state of Pennsylvania, and it's basically bringing the kids to involve them in the cooking process. So we say hands-on in the name because we really think that kids learn best by doing, and the sounds and the smells and the taste of, being able to taste everything that you're cooking really helps them remember what they've learned.
How do you take kids who today are bombarded with junk food and get them to kind of make that switch to looking at some healthier choices?
Well, I use a lot of humor, and a lot of times, kids, they want to hear things that really are meaningful to them. So if they're going to look at something, first of all, I never say, eat this, it's good for you. I say, try this, you'll like it, because that's what they're hearing all the time, and as soon as they hear it's good for you, they're like, oh, no, I don't want healthy food. So I do that, and I make fun of things, like when we make squash pancakes, I'm like, today we're making pancakes, and they're like, yay, and then I'm like, out of this, and they're like, no. But then they do it, and now they're invested. So they taste it, and then they come back for more. They can't help themselves because it's really good food, and their bodies know.
Do you find that children who you work with overwhelmingly have that sense of vegetables being yuck?
I can tell you that in the last 8 years I've been in business, it is changing. I see less children across the board being totally, no, I'm not going to eat anything. Many children have quite a background. You can tell parents are very involved, like they're teaching their children a little bit at a time about where they get their food, and they love to share that information, of course. But most of the kids, I look to them to be ambassadors to their parents, so they learn, and I say, here's something else that the grown-ups don't know. Go home and tell your family this, and if you give, second, third, fourth, all the way up to high school, something that their parents don't know, that's like gold.
That's a great nugget. What are some of the things that you've had success with? Some of the foods that you've been able to introduce kids to?
Our signature recipe is whole wheat pancakes in a jar, and it's really appealing because, first of all, it's a lot of interaction for the kids. They get to, I measure everything, but then they shake it, and I sing a little song, of course, and do the whole, even when they're in high school, I sing the song, and then the only way they get me to not sing is by helping. So, so whole grains, I do a lot of whole grains, and really just using vegetables in ways that they hadn't thought of before, like squash pancakes, like zucchini brownies, things that all of a sudden they're like, oh, and if they haven't tasted it before and it tastes the same and they're like, oh, okay, but really I don't hide the food. I show it to them. I'm like, I want them to really be like, oh, that was really weird, and I ate it anyway. That's like a badge of honor.
And it did still taste good.
Yeah. That's right. And I always tell them it's their choice. I really believe empowering them to make that choice. So I say, it's your choice. If you choose not to, taste it, and then everybody's taste is different.
Right. Any tips for parents for getting kids more involved in the kitchen? I think a lot of parents are concerned that I want to get dinner on the table. It's it's 5:45. I don't have time to bring them over and ask them to chop something or cut something. So how do you do that? And safely.
Exactly. Well, safety, and I stress a lot of safety in the kitchen. I was just in kindergartens this past week, and I'm using a knife, and I'm using what I call the most dangerous tool in the kitchen, which is the cheese grater. Because it doesn't look dangerous, and it could be really painful if you get, so I use very practical things, and I think for parents, if they don't do it in that moment when dinner is being served, they start small and you know, one little dish, like what's their child's favorite thing? Well, let's make that. And then the next time it's made, they can maybe help a little bit because now they have some prior knowledge. You know, the best time is to not do it when the parents are stressed. I would say on a weekend when there's no sports and no every other thing in the world that they have to do.
Do you have any suggestions for some things that parents could help their kids with, or get their kids to help them cook beyond, you know, I think when parents think, oh, we're going to cook, we're going to make a cake, we're going to make cupcakes, we're going to make cookies.
There are a lot of really good raw recipes. I have a recipe that I just did recently, watercress sweet carrot salsa, and it's just chopping up. It has 4 ingredients: watercress, carrots, celery, and red onion. And so it's very colorful, and it's a lot of chopping. So, you know, you might want to get a chopper, or, you know, there's some of those pizza roller things that are safe. And they don't have to cut it all. They just have to do it a couple times to feel like they're part of the process. And then it has a thing that you can shake. Anything you can shake, anything you can stir, all of those things. You know, it isn't, kids don't look at it like, well, I didn't do the whole thing, so I didn't. They're like, oh, I did a little bit, so now I'm part of it. And let me taste what it tastes like.
It was enough to help. You also talk with your students about what food does in your body.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that message.
So, kind of skirting the word nutrition, because that's another key word that they're like, I don't want to hear about it. I just say, you know, so let's talk about what part of your body does this help. So when we talk about sugar, where, you know, what part of your body does sugar help? And they're like, sugar helps something? Like, oh, good, I can eat this all the time. But, you know, so you have to give them both sides of the story. When we talk about dark greens, we talk about calcium. If I'm using milk, I'll often go from milk to the dark greens to explain, where does the cow get the calcium from? From the grass. How can you skip the cow in the middle? You can eat dark greens. What are your favorite dark green vegetables? Name 10 dark green vegetables. And now all of a sudden they're thinking, oh, and the next time they see it, they're going to be like, oh, guess what? This is where I can get calcium from. So just little pieces of information, and I bombard them a lot with a lot of things. But if they get 1 or 2, and now when they're older, 4th grade and up, I say, you know what? If you hear something that you're not sure about, you know where to find the answers. I send them to the library. I send them to the dictionary. You hear words that you're not sure of. This is a perfect, learn about your food. Don't put anything in your mouth you don't know where it came from.
And that's an important message for parents to give their kids as well.
Yeah.
We have just a few seconds left, but your top tips for parents for helping kids to try new things and eat a little more healthfully at home?
I would say, number 1, be honest with them. Don't try to hide food. I mean, you can hide food, that doesn't hurt, but it's good to let them know, like, look what I'm putting in here. Isn't this weird? Isn't this crazy? Don't make it seem like it's wonderful when you know they're going to think it's gross. So say, oh, this is gross. I wonder what this tastes like. Let's try it. You know, so that I would say, you know, color is really important. Like, do something with the colors. If food looks nice, we're all in the same boat. If food looks good, we're going to try it. If it smells good, we're going to try it. When something is good for your body that's unusual, like onions and garlic are great natural antibiotics. So I have kids that are like, they would never eat onions, but they're like, oh, really? That's like something different. Like, I can do that. You know, and I would say it makes them, help the kids, make them feel like it gives them a little more power. It's like, okay, if you know how to make this, then you help me make it and you make the decision.
Super. Okay, Yvonne, thanks so much for your time. Again, this is the second in a series of webisodes on teaching kids about healthy eating, and it's sponsored by MissionHealthyLiving.org, funded by the Pottstown Health and Wellness Foundation.